live from the energy capital of the nation. Don Carpenter on News Talk 1270 KIML.
News Talk 1270 KIML, Don Carpenter Show. Good morning. It's time to make the donuts. I figured we'd start off the show today. We actually have a pretty busy show. In the 7 o'clock hour, at 7:30, we're going to have the guys from the Mega Monster Truck Tour coming in. They'll tell us about the event coming up this weekend at Camplex. At 8 o'clock, we'll have Joy Simon from the Chamber of Commerce. She's going to come in and spend some time with us. And after the 9 o'clock news, we'll talk to Tom Dyer from the Moorcroft Mud Mafia. They're having their big mud drags this weekend as well. And we will give away another set of tickets. Not yet. We will give away another set of tickets in the 7 o'clock hour. So you want to stay tuned for that. Probably, we'll say between 7 and 7:30 because I don't want to give away the tickets for a competing event. So between 7 and 7:30, we'll give away those tickets. And we also have Taco John's to give away today as well. So tons of stuff to give away. And we love giving away stuff around here. I know a lot of radio hosts think it's beneath them to give away things, but I enjoy it because it's fun. I like giving. I mean, our sponsors give us this nice stuff to give away. I like spreading the wealth. And yesterday, if you listened yesterday, we had a really good conversation about the Zimmerman trial, and it kind of made me regret not talking about it a little bit more. And of course, more stuff came out after the show, so I figured we'd talk about the Zimmerman trials today. That way we can get away from the Obamacare and the IRS and all that other stuff and talk about something that's a little bit, it's obviously political because it's been made political, but it's a little bit bigger than politics. And I enjoy talking about things that are bigger than politics. And, of course, having said that, after the show yesterday, I was listening to Rush. He started talking about this. And, of course, I actually remember hearing about this months and months ago before the charges were even filed against Zimmerman. But it turns out now there's proof that the Justice Department actually paid for anti-Zimmerman protests. And, Rush kind of touched on it yesterday, but I think we're going to go into a little bit more detail, and then we'll talk about some of the developments in the trial yesterday. But a division of the U.S. Department of Justice was deployed to Sanford, Florida in 2012 to provide assistance for anti-George Zimmerman protests, including a rally headlined by activist Al Sharpton, according to newly released documents. The Community Relations Service, a unit of the Department of Justice, reported expenses related to its deployment in Sanford to help manage protests between March and April of 2012, according to documents obtained by watchdog group Judicial Watch. And for those that have been following this case from the beginning, if you'll remember, the Sanford Police Department didn't file charges at first. It's just until all these people from out of town came down there and started threatening riots, and we're going to get into some of that as well today. But they, Al Sharpton, and apparently the Department of Justice sent people down to organize these protests. And then the prosecutor had to file charges. The police had to arrest him, and the rest is history from there. The Community Relations Service spent, this isn't a whole lot of money, but still, $674.14 between March 25th and 27th related to having been deployed to Sanford, Florida to work marches, demonstrations, and rallies related to the shooting and death of an African-American teen by a neighborhood watch captain. CRS also spent another $1,142.84 for the same purpose between March 25th and 28th. And they also spent $892.55 to provide support for protest deployment in Florida and $751.60 to provide technical assistance. So in all, they spent maybe $2,500. So, it's obviously not a lot of money, but the point is here that the Department of Justice was sticking its nose in something that it's not supposed to be sticking its nose in. Protests, that's not the government's job. And I think, I think people on both sides of the aisle, unless you're directly related to this kind of stuff, can kind of agree on that. Sharpton, and I love how they bring this up, who promoted the Tawana Brawley hoax in the 1980s and in 1995, led a protest against the quote-unquote white interloper, owner of a Harlem clothing store that ended in a deadly shooting rampage, was the featured speaker at the March 31st rally, called the March for Trayvon Martin, where he advocated for Zimmerman's prosecution. CRS expenditures related to the anti-Zimmerman protests continued through mid-April, where they spent another $550. Local government officials noticed the Department of Justice efforts in building bridges of understanding in Sanford. Congratulations to our partners. Here's a quote. Congratulations to our partners, Thomas Battles, Regional Director, and Mildred D. Robles, Miami-Dade Coordinator, and their co-workers at the U.S. Department of Justice Community Relations Service. And there's a lot more evidence here, but I mean, the whole story is on the Daily Caller if you want to go there. I mean, you get the idea. The idea is that the Justice Department has been turned into a community organizing group. And this is the kind of stuff that people said was going to happen. And I mean, I hate to make this case political because it really is something bigger than politics, but I figured I'd start off with that, then move on to the bigger issues because, I mean, it's been made political. It's a shame, but that's the way it is. When we come back, we'll talk about the closing in the case. Zimmerman never did testify, which is obviously within his rights. We'll talk about the bias of the judge. The judge is just unbelievably hostile to the defense. So we'll talk about all that, and this is probably all we'll do up until our guests come in at 7:30. So stay tuned. News Talk 1270, KIML, Don Carpenter Show. We'll be right back.
From Washington to Cheyenne to right here in Gillette, Don Carpenter on News Talk 1270 KIML. Call Don now, 682-1270. News Talk 1270 KIML.
News Talk 1270 KIML. Don Carpenter Show. Thanks for joining us this morning. And if you're just tuning in, we've been going over some of the latest developments in the Zimmerman trial. And actually I have a short one. I have a short little blurb I want to share with you before we get into all the audio. We're going to talk about Zimmerman not testifying. And we're going to talk about the judge being biased, or, is she being biased? We'll talk about that. And of course, anytime you have a comment, 682-1270, 682-1270 is the number. If you're one of the people listening on the stream from out of the area, it's 307-682-1270. 307 is the area code. And yesterday we were talking about the threat of riots, and police departments in Florida are already setting up plans for riots in the case of an acquittal. And it's looking more and more likely like that's going to happen. I mean, let's be honest. Well, the latest twist in all of this is now George Zimmerman's trial attorney, Don West, recently reported that he received emails from people threatening his daughters with rape over a controversial post on Instagram. Rachel West, who was not in the family picture, was in the courtroom on Monday, and for those that don't know, Instagram is a photo sharing site on the internet where you can take pictures with your phone and share them really easily on Facebook and Twitter and stuff like that. In response to a July 2nd prosecution request to investigate the social media post, West said the family photo prompted threats of violence that were vicious, and West also said he was distressed that in a request to investigate the post, the prosecution had made the reckless, dangerous, and inaccurate allegations. Prosecutors linked the motive for the post to witness Rachel Gentile. She was the last person that talked to Trayvon Martin over the phone before Zimmerman killed him on February 26, 2012. Gentile, or Gentile, I don't know how it is, who also speaks both Creole and Spanish, did not speak English well, and said that she could not read and write cursive. And of course, that was a big deal because the letter that she supposedly wrote to I believe she wrote to the Martin family, I believe. But the letter she supposedly wrote was in cursive, but she can't write cursive. West cross-examined Jeantel in court on June 26th and 27th, and West claims that he took the picture with his daughter's phone because he has the longest arm, but could not find out about the, or did not find out about the controversial Instagram post until June 28th. So basically, here's what it is. It was the attorney, Don West, and his two daughters. They were, I believe, a 23-year-old daughter, and the other one was about the same age. They're in their car eating ice cream, having ice cream cones. Big deal, right? And the quote on the picture says, we beat stupidity, celebration cones. It's like ice cream cones. And then Zimmerman defense, and then dad killed it. Like killed it, meaning he, hit a home run. And of course, people took offense to that because anything that the defense is doing offends somebody and always ends up with threats. In this case, it ended up with rape threats towards the defense attorney's daughters. I mean, really, this is the question I was asking yesterday. What does the world come to when a 23-year-old girl can't even be proud of her dad being a lawyer and post a picture of them eating ice cream cones on the internet without ending up in rape threats? It's ridiculous. But that's the world we live in. If you do anything that is not politically correct, you get threatened with violence. And it doesn't help that the Department of Justice is sending people into areas to stir up this kind of madness. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, if the Department of Justice hadn't they didn't spend a lot of money, but they sent people down to organize these protests that ended up with Zimmerman being arrested. This trial would not be going on right now because the police department and the prosecutor's office originally said, hey, there's no evidence here that it was anything but self-defense. So they were basically backed into a corner with a weak case, and this is what's going to happen. And now the violence, I mean, let's be honest. Something is going to happen when he's acquitted, and it's going to happen. He's going to be acquitted. Something's going to happen, and luckily we're far enough away from it here that we're not going to have to worry about it. But Florida is going to be a mess, and I bet New York City and L.A. and Chicago and Detroit, places like that are already pretty bad, are going to be even worse. So let's talk about Zimmerman not testifying. We're gonna start off with some audio here. Where this audio starts up, the judge is asking Zimmerman if he wants to testify again. She's asking inappropriate questions. The attorney, his attorney, I think it's O'Mara, this attorney, objects to it, and of course the judge doesn't like that. Can't object to the judge. So here we go.
And like I said before, you're aware that during this trial you have the absolute right to remain silent. You do not have to say anything, do anything, or prove anything. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
And you also have the right to testify if you want to. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
And I've given you an opportunity to discuss with your attorneys whether or not you want to testify in this case, and you have indicated that you have had those discussions?
Yes, Your Honor.
And have you made a decision, sir, as to whether or not you want to testify in this case?
I object to that question.
Okay, over.
See, here's the deal. The judge is basically asking if she's given, if Zimmerman's being offered the opportunity to testify and has been told that he doesn't have to testify. But see, in front of the jury, you're not supposed to ask if he wants to testify. If he's not going to testify, he just doesn't go up on the stand. You don't make a big deal about it in front of the jury because that could possibly taint the jury. Although I don't think it's going to matter in this case, but in some other cases, a guy not testifying makes him look guilty.
Well, have you made a decision as to whether or not you want to testify in the case?
I object to that question. I think that's Mr.
Overruled. The court is entitled to inquire of Mr. Zimmerman's determination as to whether or not he wants to testify. Mr. Zimmerman, have you made a decision as to whether or not you want to testify in this case?
Not at this time, Your Honor.
Okay, and when is it that how long do you think you need before you make that decision?
Your Honor, may we have an opportunity to speak? The case isn't concluded yet.
I understand that, and I've asked Mr. Zimmerman if he needed more time to talk to his attorneys, and if he does, I will afford it to him.
Now, you got to remember, the night before this happened, they ran until 10 o'clock, And then the judge said, hey, you got to be back in here at 8 o'clock. And, of course, the defense said, hey, we need time to prepare witnesses, because that is something that it's actually grounds for an appeal if he's convicted, because the court has to give enough time between sessions to prepare witnesses. And the judge just got up off the stand and walked out on the defense while they were talking. This is the kind of unprofessional conduct that this judge has been engaging in. And we'll get into all of that a little bit later. But we're up against the bottom of the hour break. When we come back, we'll get into a little bit more of this. There's a lot to go over here. So stay tuned. News Talk 1270, KIML, Don Carpenter Show. We'll be right back.
Have an event you'd like to promote on the show? Email Don at doncarpenter@basonsradio.com. You're listening to Don Carpenter on News Talk 1270 KIML.
News Talk 1270 KIML. Don Carpenter Show. 6:34 here at the studios, and I want to thank you for joining us this morning. It's a busy day. 7:30, we'll have the guys from the Mega Monster Truck Tour coming in. It's going to be this Friday night at the Camplex. You don't want to miss that. 8 o'clock, we'll have Julie Simon from the Chamber of Commerce, and in the 9 o'clock hour, right after the news, we'll talk to Tom Dyer from the Moorcroft Mud Mafia. And their event is on Saturday, so you can actually do both. And of course, in the 7 o'clock hour, between 7 and 7:30, we'll give away a couple tickets to the Moorcroft Mud Mafia as well. So definitely stay tuned for that. And where we left off on the Zimmerman trial coverage, the judge was scolding Zimmerman's attorney. It was actually Don West that she was scolding. Don West is the bald guy with the white goatee, or gray or white. Where we left off, the judge was scolding him because she was basically asking Zimmerman if he wanted to testify, and then kind of pressuring him to make that decision right there and then in front of the jury, which, I guess Zimmerman's attorneys thought that was not a good idea to do it in front of the jury, because obviously a guy that doesn't want to testify, it doesn't look good to some juries. But like I've said, the facts in this case are so strong. I mean, this guy, he could testify, he could not testify. It wouldn't make a difference. And it would really only harm his case at this point.
How much more time do you think you're going to need to discuss this with your attorneys?
I assume it would depend on how long the recesses are, At the end of the day.
Okay, well, if your attorneys have finished with 2 witnesses before the end of the day, do you think that you would then know whether or not you want to testify?
On Mr. Zimmerman's behalf, that decision...
I am asking your client questions. Please, Mr. West.
I object to the court inquiring of Mr. Zimmerman as to his decision about whether or not to testify.
Your objection is overruled. Mr. Zimmerman, I will give you more time, sir, to discuss this with your attorneys. Thank you very much.
Joining us, our legal panel in Florida, Diana Tennis, in San Francisco, Jim Hammer, and in Washington, Bernie Grimm and Ted Williams. Diana, I'm going to go straight to you. I'm going to tell you right off the top, that judge was way out of line. The defense had not rested, had not nearly rested. And what in the world was she badgering him for and not talking to the lawyer? Way out of line. Do you agree with me or disagree? She should have waited.
I totally agree, Greta. And what you don't...
Yeah, I mean, I'm far from a legal expert, but I would have to agree that was out of line. Let's go to the phones. News Talk 1270, KIML, Don Carpenter Show. You're on the air.
Hi, Don.
Hey, how's it going?
That judge was so far out of the line, she's not even in the same coloring book.
Yeah, I know. I mean, and she's on the wrong page. I mean, she just went all the way over to the next page.
Well, she jumped right on the prosecution side right there, and she should be removed from that trial immediately and replaced with somebody who can show maybe, even if they think he did something, at least they can show that they don't, are for the other side. I mean, when his lawyer started to talk for him, he says, I'm talking to him.
Yeah.
That's why you have a lawyer, so you have a voice in the court, so you don't have to open your mouth. Somebody for your goods.
Exactly, and she was pressuring him to make a decision right then and there, and they don't have to make that decision until they close their case.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I mean, I got a bunch of instances of this judge taking the prosecution side in this case, and if Zimmerman's acquitted, it won't be because the judge didn't try to get him convicted. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah, and isn't that the judge's job, though, is try to convict somebody? Oh, no, that's right. Their job is to sit there and judge the merits of the case.
Yeah, and be the referee in the case, right? But
It's just, I was shocked when I seen that, my mouth hung open when I first saw it on TV. I was like, I cannot believe this is actually happening.
oh yeah, and this isn't even the worst. I mean, and like I said, the night before, she kept him until 10 o'clock, said they had to be back at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then walked out she just got up off the stand and walked back to her chambers while the defense lawyers were still talking. I mean, that's how unprofessional she is.
She should be dropped from the case.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's too.
I don't have the words for it.
Yeah.
The disrespect that she's shown her profession. And to be a judge, she had to have been a lawyer first.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure.
You think she'd know the rules?
Yeah, you think she would know the rules, but I mean, there's something fishy going on with this case, and I don't know anything about this judge. I lived in Florida for a short while, but I can't remember if I think judges are elected there. So she's probably elected to office. I mean, she's just a county court judge. I think she's elected to office. So hopefully the voters remember this when it's time for her to come up for election again.
Well, even like this time here, you have judges that are elected in or voted in, and you still have them. Some of them vote for the judge simply because that's the same name they had last time they voted.
Oh yeah. I mean,
some of them just vote because it's a check mark to do.
Well,
don't believe it or not, we do have judges that are biased, even in our little county here, that maybe we should remove. But until we do, we can't do nothing about it.
Well, I don't know how it works here in Wyoming or in Florida, but where I grew up in Pennsylvania, the judges are elected. But what happens is every 5 or 10 years, they come up for election again. But you don't vote for a person against them. You just vote whether they should be retained as a judge. So there's
exactly.
They're not.
Yeah, also.
So I mean everybody just votes for them and they keep their jobs for a lifetime.
I don't know who oversees the judgeship or if it's the Florida Supreme Court.
Oh yeah.
They should all be looking at their TVs right now, shaking their head.
Yeah. I'm sure the Florida Supreme Court probably has a division that keeps an eye on judge misconduct and. Maybe something will happen.
Get another one, and if he goes to where he gets any kind of conviction, they can point back to this and say judge bias.
Oh yeah. If he's convicted, and I still don't see any way that he could ever be convicted. But if he is convicted, they have so many grounds for appeal that he'll end up walking anyway.
Exactly. Well, I'm going to lose you. I'm going down the hill.
Yep. Have a good one, and I'm sure we'll talk to you later. Thanks for calling in. Always great calls. Let's get back to the judge just showing herself to be the fool that she is.
Or may not realize is that was not the first time she inquired of George Zimmerman regarding.
Or actually, we'll go back to the phones. News Talk 1270, KIML, Don Carpenter Show. You're on the air. Hello, you're on the air.
Yeah, hello.
Yeah, News Talk 1270, KIML.
Yeah, I only have one thing to say is when is enough going to be enough? When are people going to stand up and be like, all right, we've had it?
Yeah, it's. I guess we're gonna see some of that if Zimmerman's acquitted. We're gonna see some of it, but it's gonna be on the wrong side.
Right. But how bad does it have to get for the good people to stand up and be like, all right, this is it?
Yeah, well, apparently this isn't it. The daughters of the defense attorneys are getting rape threats, and I guess that's not enough.
I don't know.
What's going to... this isn't going to... and Zimmerman's even said that he's afraid for his life. Even if he walks on this, he's never going to be safe.
On Hannity yesterday, some black gentleman called and was saying how if he sticks his head out at a 7-Eleven or a Piggly Wiggly, or he's going to pop his head off.
Oh yeah, and
how ridiculous is it?
And the guy's face has been on TV everywhere. He's going to have to grow a beard and shave his head or something because he's not going to be safe. Hopefully he's got hopefully he'll win enough money from his lawsuit against NBC for doctoring those tapes that he can leave the country and go somewhere safe.
he probably has to leave the country.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I mean, he's, he was born here. I mean, he's Hispanic descent, but he's an American. He's not from Mexico or anything. So he's
right.
gonna, he's
I
gonna.
think his mother's actually from Peru.
Oh yeah,
but anyway,
right. Peru.
I have a 9-month-old baby, and this is the beginning of his world that he has to live in, and I just don't even know where to begin with. It's insane.
Yeah. I mean, and it's only going to get worse. I mean, I guess the breaking point is going to be one of these trials is going to happen. There's going to be widespread unrest somewhere. And I mean, I don't think even if there is unrest this time, I don't think it's going to be widespread. But I mean,
and I'm actually leaving for New York today to go on vacation.
Well, be careful.
Yeah. With the whole family, it's going to be awesome.
Well, I mean, I love New York. I mean, you're going to New York City then, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I love it there. But be safe. I'm telling you, if the verdict comes in tomorrow, I mean, it might be a rough weekend.
No, I was being sarcastic. It probably will be a big giant nightmare.
Oh yeah.
I don't know what these people think, and their whole thought process, and obviously the liberal schools have had a lot of hand in teaching them how to be morons. I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean it's the whole culture, really. I mean it's a culture of if you don't get what you want, you can be violent and get it, or threaten violence and get it. I mean, look, the Department of Justice is actually paying people to go down and hang out and start these protests. I mean, it's ridiculous. I don't know the solution to any of it, to tell you the truth.
I don't either. I wish somebody would call and let us know if they have one.
Yeah. I mean, if anybody has a solution, by all means, please call in.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Thanks a lot for the call. Excellent call. Let's go take another call. News Talk 1270 KIML, you're on the air.
Yeah, I just wanted to call in and say I agree with that person that was just on the phone.
Yes.
And what you said earlier in the show, Don, about it's a bigger picture. I mean, you have the IRS thing. You have the Benghazi cover-up. You have the NSA taking all of this information that's a clear violation of the Fourth Amendment. And you have the Justice Department going down and stirring this thing up because there's like an agenda. If you're not on the political right side, then we'll use whatever powers that we can to make you be that way.
Oh yeah, and I mean, and this isn't even really a political thing. Well, I mean, it's been made political, but I mean, Zimmerman's a Democrat. It's not like he's some Tea Party person. I mean, he's a Democrat. So I mean, they'll throw their own under the bus.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't know that, but it feels like it's a particular agenda to be a certain type of people. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, well, you're cutting out. I don't know if you got in a bad cell or something, but are you still with us?
But I'm probably going to lose you, so Don, we appreciate your show, man.
Hey, thanks a lot, and I appreciate the call, and we got most of what you were trying to say. And with that, we're going to take a short break. We'll come back. We'll get into a little bit more of this. News Talk 1270, KIML, Don Carpenter Show. We'll be right back.
For the latest on the show, follow Don on Facebook. Just search for Don Carpenter Radio. News Talk 1270 KIML.
The Newseum is a big Washington, D.C. tourist destination. Its exhibits are about journalism and the First Amendment. Big whoop on journalism, eh? 4 million people visit this place every year. It's not cheap, $22 to get in. Most expensive museum in town. It's popular, expensive, nonprofit, and yet it's in financial meltdown. According to an AP investigation, the Newseum lost millions between 2009 and 2011. And the money have resulted in 4 rounds of layoffs. And despite the layoffs, there's still financial chaos in the Newseum universe. So they're reorganizing their educational programs in hopes of drawing in more people. They want to fundraise off their First Amendment exhibits. Now, this is amazing. You look at the competition. Washington is filled with museums, private and public, that cost people little or nothing to get into. Yet this place, the most expensive ticket in town, is struggling, trying to figure out how to fundraise, meaning they're going to beg people to give them money to prop them up. Well, they're in the right place, Washington, D.C. In most other places in the country, a company with 4 million customers a year that takes in generous revenues would have found a way to be profitable a long time ago. If not, they'd go bankrupt. But these are journalists in Washington, so quite naturally, they're clueless about business, free enterprise, and profit. Don's dream of owning a home was crushed. Don became a victim of identity theft. He didn't even know it. His credit ruined. Don couldn't even get a business loan, so he called LifeLock, the industry leader in identity theft protection. LifeLock found multiple fraudulent credit applications that identity thieves were trying to open. LifeLock shut them down. They helped Don avoid further disasters. Identity theft is so complex, you simply cannot fight it alone. And that's why I chose to protect myself and my family with LifeLock Ultimate. Arm yourself with LifeLock Ultimate. You can visit lifelock.com/rush for details and the special 10% discount. Or call and use the promo code RUSH to get the special 10% discount. 800-444-2810. 800-444-2810. 800-444-2810. Network does not cover all transactions, and the scope may vary.
In northern Wyoming, our way of life is an honest one. Our fundamentals are simple, but they're cherished. At First Northern Bank of Wyoming, they do banking with the same ethics and values that you, their customers, hold dear. Visit First Northern Bank and let them help you with all your banking needs. First Northern Bank of Wyoming. They are Northern Wyoming's first bank from Gillette to Buffalo and Sheridan. First Northern Bank of Wyoming, member FDIC, an equal housing lender.
Now, from the News Talk 1270 KIML Weather Center.
Mostly sunny skies today with a high near 98. It'll be a little bit breezy, though. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 63, and for tomorrow, Friday, a few isolated showers and thunderstorms. In the afternoon, mostly sunny with a high near 86. It's 65 and fair at the airport. That's your weather update here on News Talk 1270 KIML.
You're listening to Don Carpenter on News Talk 1270 KIML. Call Don right now, 682-1270.
News Talk 1270 KIML. Don Carpenter Show. 6:52 here at the studios. And we don't really have enough time to really get into any more of the audio. We'll pick it back up on the other side of the top of the hour break. We've been talking about the Zimmerman case, and I started off with a little story about how the Department of Justice sent people down to Sanford, Florida to stir up the pot and get Zimmerman prosecuted when the attorney, the state's attorney and district attorney or whatever they call him in Florida and the police department didn't want to press charges. So the Department of Justice sends somebody down. They get things stirred up, get him arrested. Al Sharpton shows up, does his thing. And now the judge, she's basically doing everything she can to hamstring the defense. And so if Zimmerman is acquitted, and I say when he's acquitted because I still think he's going to be acquitted, it won't be because everybody involved didn't try to stop it. He'll be acquitted in spite of any real, in spite of the justice system, he's going to be acquitted. That's the bottom line. And with that, we're actually, why don't we give away a Taco John's since we don't have enough time to actually get into anything else this hour. 682-1270 is the number, 682-1270 for a Taco John's breakfast combo. It's a meat and potato, either bacon or sausage burrito, meat and potato, either bacon or sausage taco. My favorite, the scrambler burrito or a breakfast and egg burrito from Taco John's. The rules are you have to be over 18. You can't have won anything in the past 30 days. We'll take the first call at 682-1270. 682-1270 is the number, and we'll give a few seconds for the delay to catch up to us for the Taco John's giveaway. Okay. Well, we'll leave the lines open during the break. If you want to call in, we'll take the first call for a Taco John's combo. And, of course, in the next hour, we'll give away Moorcroft Mud Mafia tickets as well. So If you don't win Taco John's, you can win the tickets. News Talk 1270, KIML, Don Carpenter Show. We'll see you after Fox News and Basin Radio News in just a few minutes.
If it's happening in Wyoming, he's talking about it. Don Carpenter on News Talk 1270 KIML. Call Don right now, 682-1270.
News Talk 1270 KIML, Don Carpenter Show. I want to thank Bill for calling in and winning the Moorcroft Mud Mafia tickets. And just a reminder, we'll have 5 pairs of them on Steve's store tomorrow at 40% off. So, what is it, 40% off $5 at $3 a piece? You can't beat that. So if you didn't win, you can still get them really cheap tomorrow on Steve's store after 9 o'clock. I don't know exactly where they'll be. I kind of have a feeling they'll be near the beginning, but, I don't see the list until right before the show. And, of course, after the bottom of the hour break, we'll have the guys from the Mega Monster Truck Tour. I hear we have a conference room full of people waiting to come in, and I don't want to keep them waiting too much longer, so we'll finish up the Zimmerman stuff. We'll go to break. We'll get those guys in, and we'll have a lot of fun with them. So stay tuned for that. Let's go back to the judge being a jerk in the Zimmerman trial. Let's be honest. The judge is a jerk. She's just an unprofessional jerk.
Trial of this nature, and he never saw Trayvon Martin for a millisecond.
No, and he was testifying really to an ultimate issue in the case. Was Zimmerman's use of force justified and reasonable? What was going on in Zimmerman's head? And I suppose if you're a whip, you're going to be more inclined to want to shoot to kill somebody if somebody's on top of you pummeling you because you're really afraid for your life.
Well, it doesn't help that the guy, Trayvon Martin, said, "You're going to die tonight," as he was beating his head against the concrete. And remember, now, one of the big points of contention in the 911 call is who was screaming, "Help, help, help." And the first thing that Zimmerman said when they slapped the cuffs on him when he was arrested that night, they asked him, the first thing he said was, "I had to do it. I was screaming for help. Nobody was coming," without being asked and without knowing about this 911 call. It's pretty obvious what happened that night. Nobody will ever know for 100% sure. But we can know with 95% certainty what happened.
I do think it's I don't know if it's going to affect the jury or not, that he's 100 pounds heavier than he was at the time when this fight happened. Because now he really outweighed Trayvon Martin. So I don't know if that's going to sway them at all. I would be a little bit careful of that. But
he might outweigh him, but he's got 33% body fat. The guy's out of shape. He's in worse shape than me, and that's saying something.
How terrific for the defense that they had got to get on the floor and demonstrate with a dummy the pounding of the head. The jurors were right there.
I think we have some video of that.
After they fought yesterday long and hard to keep the animation out, they opened the door for the defense to not just do an animation, but do a recreation in front of the jury.
Way better than the animation.
Yeah, the animation was just something that they created that would show their version of events. It would be like the fifth or...
I'm surprised that nobody mentioned the racist part of the dummy being black. That's how ridiculous this thing's gotten. And it's just a shame that our justice system is being used to advance political agendas and all kinds of stuff like that.
6 retelling of the version of the events, but when they're down there pummeling on the mannequin, it was, in a way, I look forward to the late night shows because they're going to have a blast with that.
Yeah, they are.
The jury could
Saturday
hear
Night Live
that.
will have it.
Is there an argument, a single argument of any kind? If you're George Zimmerman, might you say, "I want to talk"? We're going to...
Not in this case. I don't think there's any excuse for Zimmerman to talk in this because he doesn't have to. The prosecution's case was so weak that the defense could have not called a single witness and probably still gotten an acquittal.
No, in a minute.
If he says, "I want to talk," I think Don West takes him out in the hallway and beats him sense.
Don West is the second of the 2 defense attorneys.
Yeah,
well, I don't know. I don't know if anybody wants to attack George Zimmerman these days.
He's tired and hungry.
There is zero reason for him to take the stand. His story has been told over and over and over again. The only thing that he does by getting on the stand is either give another conflicting version or one that's going to conflict with one of the versions, and he subjects himself to a brutal cross-examination.
Yeah, there's no way. And the only thing
there is a way.
Well, yeah,
no, he can say yes, I want to testify, and that's the end. He testifies.
I seriously doubt it. I mean, sometimes jurors really want to hear from the defendants, and I think the only thing that they might want to hear from this defendant right now is, "I'm sorry," but he can't get on the stand and just say that. So he's going to have to just.
And I think that's an important thing to remember here. Zimmerman says, I mean, he said many times that he feels terrible about this. He's a Catholic. He says all killing is wrong, and he's going to have to live with this for the rest of his life. He's not happy about this. He's not happy that he had to do this. And nobody wins in this case. I mean, you got a dead teenager. I mean, you know, obviously he was up to no good. He might not have been up to no good that night, but I mean, he'd been busted with drugs. He'd been busted with burglary tools. He was acting shady that night, and he jumped the guy. He jumped Zimmerman and attacked him and tried to kill him. So, but I mean, he didn't deserve to die, but Zimmerman obviously didn't deserve to die either. And if you're being attacked, you have the absolute right to defend yourself. At least for now you do. I mean, who knows what'll happen after this happens. If Zimmerman's acquitted, I wouldn't be surprised if some states start taking a look at their self-defense laws. It's something to think about. We're going to take a break a little bit early. When we come back, we're going to talk to the guys from the Mega Monster Truck Tour going on this weekend at the Camplex. So stay tuned for that. News Talk 1270, KIML, Don Carpenter Show. We'll be right back.
For the latest on the show, follow Don on Twitter @TheDonCarpenter. News Talk 1270, KIML.
8:20 here at the studios. And, as I've mentioned a few times, during the breaks usually, what I do is I try to check my Twitter feed, because a lot of, I have news feeds that come up on my Twitter feed, and Drudge and Fox News and that kind of stuff. We just got a huge development in the Zimmerman case. And here's, what they're doing right now is they're negotiating jury instructions, what the jury can consider, what they can't consider. And one of the things that they were talking about considering was a lesser charge of manslaughter. He's charged with second-degree murder right now. Second-degree felony murder, which is your standard murder charge in Florida. They were also now going to be instructed that they can consider manslaughter, and get this one. They can also consider third-degree felony murder due to child abuse. Yes, that's right. Child abuse. Trayvon Martin being murdered due to child abuse because, because children always pin grown men down and try to beat them to death using the street. So there you go. That's what the judge is doing here. And she's allowing a child abuse consideration. And hopefully the jury doesn't buy this crap. But I think it would be it ties perfectly into. We're going to go back and actually listen to the audio of the judge hounding Zimmerman again. Because we didn't really get a whole lot of that done in the first hour, and we got new people joining in and all during the show. So we're actually going to do this. We're going to start this over, and
like I said before, you're aware that during this trial you have the absolute right to remain silent. You do not have to say anything, do anything, or prove anything. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
And you also have the right to testify if you want to. Do you understand?
And before we get into that, let's go to the phones. News Talk 1270, KIML, Don Carpenter Show. You're on the air.
Hey, Donnie Carpenter, how are you?
Hey, how you doing this morning, buddy?
Oh, sitting here kind of listening. I'm in a spot where I can actually talk, so
yeah,
I figured I'd throw my 2 bits in.
Please do.
The case that never was a case to start with.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm kind of a simple guy, okay? Bottom line was, our watch captain, our neighborhood watch captain, called into the dispatcher and said, "Hey, I've got a questionable person that I'm following." And the dispatcher did according to rules. They can't tell you what to do because you're a volunteer. Said, "You don't need to do that. We'll take care of it." And he went ahead and followed through after he was told not to, basically. And that precipitated the whole thing. So he's guilty of definitely malfeasance that basically comes down to murder.
Well, you think? I mean, now, one thing you did point out is the dispatcher's the dispatcher's instructions aren't legally binding, and you did point that out. I mean, obviously, if he hadn't been there, none of this would have happened. I mean,
obviously, if he would have listened to the dispatcher, it never would have happened.
Does that
the dispatcher said, "Don't follow him. We'll take care of it."
Okay. Does that make it right for Trayvon Martin to jump him and try to beat his head into the ground?
Does that make it right? Yeah. You got one guy infringing on another guy. If I start following you around, don't you have a right to react?
Well, yeah. I'd probably walk away, or
you don't know until you're in the situation.
I certainly wouldn't jump somebody and try to beat him to death.
Well, again, see, we weren't there, so we don't know how bad it was. But the bottom line is simply that he was told not to do that, and he went ahead and chose to go against the better direction, and that precipitated the whole thing, so he's guilty.
Well, I don't know if he's guilty of murder, that's for sure. I mean, maybe it's child abuse. I mean, do you think child abuse is a proper charge?
No, but with the legal profession trumping up everything in the court systems the way they do, you got to grab at every straw you have. As a defense attorney, your job is to find everything possible that you can throw at them to defend your client. That's what a lawyer does.
Oh, yeah. Now
that's why they're disgusting. The first thing a lawyer will tell you is, I don't want to know if you're guilty or not, because in order for me to give you your best defense, I don't want to know this.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that your argument comes down to the fact that if Zimmerman had left him alone, none of this would have happened. And right. that is true. It's true that if Zimmerman wasn't nosy, and let's face it, he's a nosy guy. I mean, you got to be nosy to be a neighborhood watch captain.
Yeah.
And now that is true, but I mean, I don't see where it justifies getting jumped and beaten half to death and broken nose and all that kind of stuff. But
I think, Don, you've been drinking too much Fox Kool-Aid, to be honest with you.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess we'll see what happens. I mean,
and the other thing that the other day I was on the road and I was listening to you, and somebody brought up Chicago, and that nobody's saying anything about all the murders going on there. And I hearken back to my days on the south side of Chicago, the Cicero Railroad Yards, and the reason that there's so many murders in Chicago is they don't have neighborhood watches there.
Yeah, that is true.
It's every animal for himself on the south side of Chicago.
Yeah, and it's been like that for a long time.
Yes, it has.
Yep. Yeah, that's
I don't know where you're going with the judge thing, but I did get a chance last night to watch a little bit, and just like that there, they were making a big deal out of the judge asking Zimmerman if he wanted to testify or not, and being around the legal system a little bit over the years the way I have been, what my feeling was the judge was making sure that she didn't leave room open for any kind of an appeal. She wanted to hear directly from him whether he was going to testify or not, so that the lawyers couldn't come back and say, well, he wanted to testify, but we didn't give him a chance. So she pinned him down and said, you need to say yay or nay.
Oh, yeah, that's absolutely what she was doing. But I think the issue that the defense attorneys had with it was that she was asking at the wrong time because they hadn't closed their case yet. I think that was the issue they had with it.
Well, as a defense attorney, the issue they had with it was that was a legal loophole for them to use, and she took it away from them. Because they're a legal defense team, that's their job.
Oh, yeah.
To find everything they can use for a possible appeal if it don't go right, so on and so forth. That's their job.
Oh, yeah, and on the flip side, it's also the prosecution's job to try to get every possible every possible lesser charge included, like the child abuse stuff.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's what I said. The legal profession is disgusting.
Well, that's definitely a discussion for another day.
I mean, they got to be there, but they are disgusting. It's a dirty job, but somebody's got to do it.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, and defense attorneys, I mean, they use a lot of tricks sometimes, and sometimes they're defending bad people.
And that's just like you're talking about all the different levels of malfeasance that the jury has to work with. They're the ones that's going to have to decide at which level this thing falls. But the bottom line still was, if he would have followed good orderly directions, we wouldn't even be talking about this now.
Well, yeah, I mean, that is true. But then again, that's also a question. A question of okay.
Just a little sidebar for you. Whenever you say yeah, but, you mean no.
No, actually, the computer's making all kinds of weird noises right now.
Yeah, no, I'm just making a statement. When anybody says yeah, but, it ain't a yeah, it's a no. Because when you throw the but in there, it takes away the yeah.
Okay, hang on a second here. I don't know what was going on with the computer. Yeah, it's.
Your computer's attacking you, dude.
I'm telling you, the thing is not cooperating with me. Yeah, but I hate to cut you off, but we do have full lines, so I'm going to try to give everybody a chance. It's always good to hear from you, and it's good to hear like the other side of the story. It really is. News Talk 1270 KIML, Don Carpenter Show. You're on the air.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if these people had the shoe bent on the other foot and that Trayvon Martin had beat George Zimmerman to death, would they be trying to justify him beating George Zimmerman to death because he was following him?
Well,
or because he was checking an address? Or again, what if George Zimmerman was black and Trayvon Martin was Spanish,
Well, and that's the other side of the argument. I mean, obviously, none of this would have happened if Zimmerman had minded his own business. But
he's the neighborhood watch guy. That is his business. He's the neighborhood watch guy. That is his business.
That's true as well. But none of it would have happened. But it did happen, and that's the thing.
You don't start up a neighborhood watch if you're not gonna watch the neighborhood.
Yeah, and
it's just ignorant.
Yeah, and there absolutely was a rash of burglaries around there as well. So, I mean, it's obviously
these guys don't have anything. It's all because he's black, and that judge is that way because of the political pressure on her, and the defense is that way, or the prosecution is that way because of the political pressure on them, and it's bull crap.
Yeah, well, and I mean, you can play shoulda, woulda, coulda all you want, but. I mean, the fact is that Zimmerman did follow the guy, and he did get jumped. And just following somebody isn't cause to attack somebody. I mean, where I grew up. I mean, I didn't grow up in a rough neighborhood, so just following somebody isn't grounds to beat the crap out of them.
No, well, all I gotta say is if he's a neighborhood watch, that's his job is to watch the neighborhood. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an excellent point, and I hate to cut you off, but we're going to try to get one more call in. News Talk 1270 KIML, you're on the air.
Yeah, I'm sorry that I called in yesterday, but apparently I feel like I'm beating a dead horse.
Oh, please do.
The caller a couple calls ago who was saying that if he would have just listened to the dispatcher, the only testimony we have is George Zimmerman, and after he said that he was told to stop following him, his sworn testimony to the cops, to Sean Hannity, to everybody is he was returning to his vehicle. So he was doing what they told him to do. He turned around and started back to his truck, and that's when he was jumped. So he did exactly what he was told to, and he was attacked.
And jumped from behind.
Right.
So
I mean, you have to take him at his word because it's a sworn testimony. Whether it be lying or not, that's up for a jury, but the facts that we have are the sworn testimony that he gave, that he turned around and started back towards his truck, and then he was jumped. So he did exactly what they told him to do, even though he didn't have to.
Yeah, well, and like you said, we really don't know what exactly happened. You can only go by the evidence that's presented, and all the evidence that's been presented, all the forensic evidence, shows that Zimmerman.
Trayvon Martin was the aggressor and the attacker.
Yeah. So I mean, it's not a stretch to believe that he was jumped from behind.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I mean, if neither of them would have been there, none of this would have happened. But both of them were there, and all of this did happen. So you can't really play hypothetical in a situation like this.
I agree completely. I just wanted to rebut the previous caller a couple calls ago. That was just, apparently mixing up facts, and then, accuse you of the Fox Kool-Aid. I'd say he's on the Al Sharpton Kool-Aid.
Well, I'm not going to say that, but
right. I know you got to be biased, so maybe he should just move back to South Chicago.
Well, Now, see, the thing about all this is that what's really going on is everybody's been. Just like you said, the misconception about the dispatcher's orders. That's a pretty widespread misconception, and a lot of people don't know the whole timeline. Like I'd completely forgotten about the part where Zimmerman did say he turned around and went back to his truck, or he was on his way back to his truck. I'd completely forgotten about that myself. So, everybody claims to know all the facts of the case, but nobody really knows all the facts.
Unfortunately, in our 24-hour media cycle, in the public court of public opinion, he's been already tried one way or another. There's one side that absolutely thinks he's innocent, and there's one side that absolutely thinks he's guilty before any evidence came out whatsoever. Because it was the president who, on the first week after it happened, came out and put his view in of that. If he had a son, he would look like Trayvon Martin, which goes along the line with the cops acted stupidly in.
Oh yeah.
He just inserts himself, and then that makes it a whole public trial rather than it just being left up to the jury and the courts. And had the media not jumped on it all off, and including the president, we probably wouldn't even know this trial, and it would probably be a much cleaner trial. There wouldn't be all this misconception and everything. No one would know about it other than the local people.
Well, and the defense attorney's daughters wouldn't be getting rape threats either.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and George Zimmerman, let's say he gets the acquittal, he's going to have to live in protective custody for most likely the rest of his life.
Oh, he's going to have to leave. He's going to have to leave the country. Hopefully he gets enough money from the lawsuit from NBC
and
doctoring
CNN
that tape.
Publishing his Social Security number.
Oh yeah, that one too.
He's going to be an extremely wealthy man. Even if he's guilty, he's going to be an extremely wealthy man.
Yeah, hopefully it's enough for him to leave the country.
And the judge berating him, that's going to, in reference to the other caller too, that's going to leave it open for an appeal because the judge way overstepped her bounds.
Yeah. It's
and I think that right there, especially since it came out now that it's been political pressure for this to even become out. That our own DOJ has paid for the protests against George Zimmerman.
Well,
that's going to open it up for a possible mistrial and for an appeal easily.
Well, and hopefully it doesn't get to that point. But see, and I remember hearing about this Department of Justice stuff when the thing first started. I remember hearing about it. I guess the proof just came out yesterday, I suppose.
Exactly. Well, it's because they hid it, and it didn't come out until the Freedom of Information Act finally released all the documents.
Yeah, that's usually how this kind of stuff comes about as well.
Thanks very much, Don. I'll talk to you again sometime.
Yep. Thanks a lot. And hey, you know more about the facts of the case than I do, so that's always good to get a refresher on that. And it's always good hearing every side of this story because it's a bigger issue than just certain facts of the case. Wow, another call. Let's go to the phones again. We'll put off that break and we'll go to the phones. News Talk 1270 KIML. You're on the air.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, Al, how are you doing this morning?
Amazed at the way this case has been presented to the jury and to the public with the background of George Zimmerman being given and the kind of person he was, but they won't say anything about Trayvon Martin. And I remember seeing when this first came about the pictures of this little kid getting shot, and then you look at when it actually happened, and they're totally different. He wasn't 12 years old when he got shot, but that's the pictures they were promoting of him.
Yeah,
when it happened.
Well, and you can see pictures. All you have to do is go on the internet. You can see pictures of this kid smoking pot. You can see pictures of him with a gun. There's pictures of his Facebook page where he was dealing drugs off his Facebook page. And none of this got into the trial. And the argument there is that you don't put the victim on trial, but it does go to speak to his credibility. As obviously this kid was not the innocent 12-year-old that you see pictured on TV. He was. In my
eyes, he was just a thug.
Yeah.
I don't, I'm sure George Zimmerman didn't want to have to do that, but.
Oh, no, and he's said a million times that he feels bad about it, and he's going to have to live with the rest of his life. I mean, and Trayvon Martin did not deserve to die until the fact that he jumped Zimmerman and tried to kill him. At that point, all bets are off. I mean, obviously he didn't deserve to die just for walking around in the rain and being suspicious looking. But when you jump somebody from behind and you say you're going to kill them and you start beating their head against the concrete, all bets are off, and that guy gets to defend his life.
Well, and you just had a caller on here that said that George Zimmerman was in the wrong for following him. And I hope, we live in Wyoming, and it's a different way of life out here from what it is when you're in the cities or the bigger towns like out east and California. But we watch out for our neighbors here, and I'd hope that somebody do the same thing for him if they saw somebody lurking around his house.
Oh, yeah.
But
and
you want to criticize the man for doing something like that when all he was doing was trying to look out for his friends and neighbors.
Yeah, and I mean, the caller you're talking about, I mean, he's been here for a long time, so I mean, he's definitely been here long enough to know how things work around here. But yeah, I mean, and I mean, I get the argument that Zimmerman should, that if none of this would have happened, I get that argument that none of this would have happened, but it did happen. That's the point. And George Zimmerman didn't deserve to die. That's and that's what would have happened. That George Zimmerman would be dead right now if he hadn't pulled that gun out and defended himself.
Well, like we were just talking about with that other caller, I moved out here 6 years ago from Wisconsin, and I was close to Milwaukee and Chicago, and it seems like a lot of the people coming up from those areas to live from where to live by me there, they were not quality individuals for the most part. And yeah, the crime rate goes up, and amazing what happens. But
oh yeah. And I think and the media just ignoring what's going on in Chicago. I mean, that's a separate issue, but it's kind of related to this. I mean, there every weekend in Chicago, 50, 60 people get shot. I mean, it's just and the media just ignores it. I mean, even the Chicago newspapers basically ignore it because it's black on black crime. They don't care, and that's more racist. That's more racist than anything they're accusing George Zimmerman of being.
They don't even promote the black on the white crime because that's a really big part down there too. Because I grew up 2.5 hours from Chicago. It was pretty close, so you'd see every morning on the news how many people got shot the night before, and that's the headline every day for Chicago. How many people got killed last night at a stoplight doing nothing just because somebody wanted their wallet, and it's pretty sickening.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the answer to it. I really don't know the answer because I think we're too far down the hole to dig ourselves out.
I think we have the answer. It's places like this where you don't hear about the crime such as it is anywhere else. There's no cat burglars. Nobody's getting robbed at night because most people have a gun out here. When you hear about homes being broken into around this area, it's always during the day because people are at work, because they know better than to go there, when the people could be home, because they'll more than likely not succeed.
Well, yeah, and it's funny. I actually leave my car doors unlocked. I have no problem leaving my car doors unlocked at night because I know my floor mats and my radio are going to be there in the morning.
Generally, yeah. We do have some stupid kids running around stealing stereos and stuff. That was going on here last fall out in Antelope Valley. But for the most part, yeah, I leave the keys in all my vehicles, leave them unlocked. I've never been big on locking the doors to the house, and it just doesn't happen. I'm not really that worried about it. And if I lived in a neighborhood of Chicago, I'd probably lock everything I owned up.
Well, you'd have bars in the windows, you'd have 4 deadbolts, and you'd probably rig a shotgun up to go off at the door.
When the door opens, yeah. Well, and that's just how do you want to live? And it just sickens me that I understand the mother of this Trayvon is upset and everything, but come on, she knew he was a thug. She knew what kind of person he was.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel bad for his family. I mean, like I said, until the point where he jumped George Zimmerman, he didn't deserve to die. But like I said, all bets are off when you jump somebody from behind and you tell them you're going to kill them.
Yep. Well, have a good day.
Yep. Thanks a lot for the call. With that, we ran really long, so let's take a short break. We'll come back and we'll finish up the Zimmerman stuff. I don't think we'll carry it on. Well, maybe we'll carry it on in the next hour. It's a great topic. News Talk 1270, KIML, Don Carpenter Show. We'll be right back.